I had. So, all right, let's start that over again since apparently I had the audio completely muted, and now we're actually live. So,
Can you
my
confirm
name is
that?
Dick Coffey from United Structural. I'm here as always with my illustrious and well-dressed partner Matt Hand. How's it going there, Matt?
Take two is always better, right?
Do it again,
Well,
eh?
oh, we're doing all right. We're staying kind of social isolated, quarantine as much as possible. We've got our sanitation protocols in order when or in place whenever anything is brought to the house or we have to go out.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, as some of our viewers know, some don't. We're in New York, the kind of epicenter for this, but we are several hundred miles away from New York City. We're up on Lake Ontario, about 3 hours away from Toronto, about an hour and a half away from the Niagara Falls and Canadian border there. So we're not necessarily at the epicenter of it. We're in the same state, and so we have a lot of the same protocols and stuff. But even locally in our county, we're taking this pretty seriously. Um, and I think that's it's important for everybody. I know across the country there's a whole lot of different rules, and people are looking at this very differently. But obviously, I would encourage everybody to take this very very seriously. I know some people look at it differently as a oh, it's a bad flu, but it's that's not the truth of it. So take it seriously. I will tell this one anecdote as our method to encourage you to take this seriously. Is we got our first project the other day in the state of Illinois by way of the other detailer dying of coronavirus. So if that doesn't bring it home for you, that we've lost one of our own in the detailing community, which is a relatively small community, I'm not sure what else will. So do protect yourself in any ways you can. We can't afford to lose any detailers, especially domestic detailers. So, Matt, how's it impacted you thus far?
Well, honestly, it hasn't been too big of a change as far as how our day to day goes, other than the fact that all the kids' evening activities have been shut down. But the fact that we telecommute, just show up and work every day, and we already grocery shop only but once a month for our primary stuff anyway. We go out for milk and eggs, stuff like that during the weeks, but we just stocked up, and milk's good for 2 3 weeks. So when it runs out, it's out. But we're just going out once a month.
Yeah, yeah, and initially business wise, our initial thought was, hey, we're well prepared, right? Like we're 100% remote by default. We encouraged our employees to kind of stay home, take it seriously, all of that stuff, but it wasn't affecting our business. Now, that being said, we do tend to be planners, right? So as soon as this kind of all came home and we saw the future of it, we had kind of a plan in place. Do you want to talk a little bit about that plan and how it changed?
Yeah. So the initial plan was, how are we going to dial this down? So we looked at who who can we afford to cut completely, who can we afford to pare back. We wanted to make sure we were taking each employee's actual needs into consideration. Is this your primary source of income? Is this a secondary source of income? Do you have other income in the house? Things like that. So we were looking at what we can do to dial back operations and kind of prepare to ride out the storm just by way of scaling back cost of operations and just riding out the jobs that we had and kind of going dark. And then I don't think that lasted a day.
No, it actually didn't.
We
We had
didn't
that we
last a
had that
day.
discussion first, right? Like of what we should be doing, and then we very much changed our minds on it, which
Right.
worked out later. We were like, listen, let's instead of running away scared, let's dig in, right? Let's put our pedal to the metal, 100%. Let's make sales calls. Let's let everybody know that, hey, right now, if you need detailing that's reliable, we're the guys because we are 100% remote. We've been set up for this for 6 years now. You know, all in on all of this stuff. So we're very well prepared, we're well suited, all of that stuff. So we put all our guys on the offensive and said, all right, let's go get it. Let's make it through this time and come out the other side well. And that served us well, because then there was kind of a complete change, one that we didn't really see coming. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So what happened there? We started to get a bit of a flush of work. We said, okay, our sales calls were panning out, and then it started to really become tsunami level calls. We were almost regretting the fact that we had gone out there and looked for work, because we were now receiving so many calls. You weren't doing anything else. Your whole job became answer the phone and take requests for quote and just quote jobs.
Yeah.
Because as it turns out, India was, going down under the same lockdown sort of a principle. But with them, as we've learned, the internet is a bit of a different animal. So they've got internet at their places of business, and we always think of them as some sort of a remote connection because they're remote to the United States. But they don't have that same ability to telecommute, so they just shut down. All those detailing firms just shut down. And now we all of a sudden have this massive wave of regret of United States fabricators that are all, who can draw this job for me?
Yeah. And I know we have a fair few Indian detailers who watch our channel. I'm very curious what their thoughts are as far as like how that has actually proceeded, because my perception is they were set up to work in offices in mass, right? They've got however many computers for users they all sit in a room and they work. And then when the shutdown order came, they weren't prepared. They didn't have the logistical resources to switch to 100% telecommuting infrastructure. And I'm curious if that has changed all, because there was about a week of absolute like panic among the fabricators, like, how are we going to get this detailing done? A lot of them were pulling jobs back out of India, stuff like that. But that has since quieted down, and I'm curious if maybe the offshore detailers got a hold of their stuff, or if all the domestic detailing kind of caught up and bid those jobs, and now they're already going. I'm very curious which way that has gone, and I'm not sure. Or it may just be coincidence that our phone hasn't been ringing as heavily.
Well, you know what? I've also seen a little bit in the news, and I haven't heard any follow-up on this, but for a little while at least, they were talking about, as far as shutting down the non-essential things, was construction of new buildings. So I don't know if, out of fear, jobs are just now being pulled if they don't already have a plan in place, or if the construction's already begun. I don't know how that's going to...
There's one thing that's given me a lot of like confidence as far as the steel market has gone, is that, or at least the detailing side of it, right, is that even if the project is on hold, the customer, the building owners are still going to want to be doing everything they can so that when that hold comes off, they're ready to go, and they can start digging those foundations and pouring those anchor bolts in the wrong place as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
So that's given me confidence, but I think overall the fact that we're telecommuting, I talked to another large detailing firm. They went out right away and got a bunch of remote licenses. They were located in one of the states that, until even up to right now, as I understand it, is not under a shutdown order. And they were still going to the office every day, even up to, I think, a week ago. I don't know if they still are or not. But they're prepared, right? They've already gotten those stations on a physical server that they can connect to if they need to. So it's great that they're prepared, and I think a lot of detailing firms right now are asking themselves if when they are prepared or what they're prepared for in the future.
Yeah, and part of that preparation, at least right now, has to be this whole government stimulus, SBA stuff to kind of help. I think what's it called, the Paycheck Protection Program,
Yeah, yeah. So
and the
we've started
rollout
to
on
get
that
into
has
that.
been a little dodgy so far.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about the logistics of it, what it means, and why detailers should absolutely be going after this money?
Yes. So basically, the way that the program works is you borrow a certain amount of money, and I mean the formulas are all available. But essentially, you're going to borrow 2.5 months worth of your average payroll for 2019, and you use that to fund payroll. You can pay mortgage expenses, rent, utilities, but the primary function is the payroll. It's to keep your employees paid and on, even if they're not necessarily working. It's to keep them from having to file unemployment. It's to keep them working so that when things kind of come back online, you don't have no employees left. It's to keep them functioning. So at the end of the 8-week period, you then apply for forgiveness. And as long as you have used it for the purposes that it's supposed to be used for, payroll and the other things, and you've documented that, and you can show that you've spent that much money on those things, then the loan is forgiven and it essentially becomes a grant. So it is just free money to keep operating and to keep things moving smoothly in this time. And the way that it works is you have to go to, I would say, go through a bank, don't go to a bank, try to do it online. And one of the issues you're going to run into is not every bank is participating. Some banks have decided this isn't worth the hassle. They don't have the liquidity. They don't want to deal with the risk. Not so much the risk of default if it becomes a loan, but the risk of the turnaround process is so short that they're expected to process the loan, fund the loan, get everything out, and dealt with, that they don't feel they're necessarily all going to be able to perform their duties as far as making sure you're not using this for money laundering, funding terrorism,
Right.
all the legal requirements that they have to, that they have oversight with.
Right. And the government, in its haste to get this done, did not properly see to giving banks coverage in that case so that they can get this money out as quickly as possible.
Right. So some of them are nervous on that. Some are going for it. So if your bank is going for it, then by all means get to it. Otherwise, find one that is. But it's through the SBA, Small Business
Administration.
That's it. But you don't go directly through them. You have to go through a bank. So the lender is the one that actually processes and funds the loan for you. So you want to get in with them, get through their applications online. There's a bunch of documentation that you're going to need. So I would, check out their guidelines, check with the bank.
What are some of the things that they'll need that you think a lot of detailers might be missing?
So what you're going to need are your corporate articles of organization or articles of incorporation, depending on your corporate structure. If you're LLC or, C or S corporation, you're going to need payroll reports for 2019 so that you can document and show what your actual expenses were. That's part of determining what your eligible amount is for the loan. And you'll need your operating agreement for the company. If you've got any separate businesses, you'll need what's called an addendum A. That'll be just a list of those businesses, who's owning them, and what their relationships are to your primary business. So if you've got other, side businesses and they're totally unrelated, then you kind of explain that. But if it's real estate or something that's not detailing, but
Right.
if you've got a detailing that works for your own fabrication company, that works for your own, if you've got multiple levels of that, if you're really killing it in the industry, then you got to list out all those different relationships. And I think that's the bulk of it, is to just kind of have that documentation in place to show how much you're eligible for, and that also you are a legitimate, company.
Yeah, and I think a lot of detailers, what we again refer to as basement detailers, are going to shy away from it, and I would say don't, right? So let's say you're sole proprietorship. Is that still a payroll expense, or does that not qualify?
Yes. Yep. So if you're a sole proprietorship, it depends on how you've structured your company. But if you've got payroll expenses, then you can set that up. Another thing too to be aware of is that they have expanded unemployment insurance. So normally independent contractors or the business owners were not eligible to collect unemployment insurance. And it kind of makes sense because you can lay yourself off at any time and just collect unemployment. It's
Yeah,
somehow slide yourself money under the table
it's
as a
it's
but
kind of a double-edged sword. Like I get it, but it also like it kind of
right.
sucks.
You also could just run dry of work and therefore you are also unemployed, but now you can't be insured and get that money like anyone else could. So yeah, it is a double-edged sword, but now for at least the time being, you can collect some unemployment insurance, unemployment by filing a claim even without having the insurance just because of the expansion of that program. But I think the biggest issue is right now the rollout is slower than anticipated. That people, were hoping that.
Say it ain't so. The
Oh, I
government is
know,
not
right?
as efficient in rolling out a program as we expected it to be, or hoped for it to. I mean, expect is kind of a loaded
Well,
term because nobody expected it to be efficient, right? But
sure. So the way that I'm understanding it is in the way that it's worked with our bank was last Monday, I believe. Um, we filled out a form. They said, we haven't received all of the guidelines or information or everything from the government yet, but we're kind of taking names to get a pre-list going of who's interested in this. Okay. So we filled that out and they said, okay, we're going to contact you Wednesday and then you'll be able to fill out the application. So Wednesday, we got an email that says, we're working on the application. Check in with us on Friday. Okay. So Friday, we get an email. It says, hey, the application's ready to go. Sign online and fill it out. And then I get onto there and I'm looking and looking and looking, and it's a bank's website and it's a lot more involved than you would think it is, but there's no link to fill out the application. So I looked that over for a couple hours, couldn't find anything. And then Saturday morning, get another email that says, hey, we're going to have that application for you tomorrow. We're almost done putting it together. You're killing me with these emails and stressing me out. So Sunday morning, there's the application. Finally, I'm in. All right, I start filling it out. It looks like there's 5 pages of forms to fill out. I'm on the second one and it's stuck and just won't go anywhere. I can't click next anymore. It won't tell me what the issue is. It just won't move. So I chat online with their support, and after about 10 minutes of waiting to get to talk to somebody, which perfectly reasonable and then some, honestly, for what I expect is a wave of people flooding this thing, I get to speak to somebody. I talk to them for about 5 to 7 minutes, and then the chat room crashes. Hang on 1 second. Just getting a quick call. Hang up on that. You can wait. Okay, so chat room crashes. So I call their phone number, 1-800 number for support, and it asks for the business card, uh, the business debit card, and then PIN number to get me in. I enter it in, and then it asks me that information again. I enter it in. What's going on? After the third time it hits me, I'm stuck in an infinite loop, and it will not accept anything. It's just going to keep going and going and going. So I have to hang up. I can't contact them at all. Later on in the day, I check back and I find that now, in lieu of the application site, it just says, we're undergoing temporary maintenance. You could check back later.
yeah, I mean they're
Just flat
trying,
out
right?
later.
Like just
Yeah, they're trying.
it's just intense. There's a
Yeah.
lot going on.
So as of this morning, application was working. I was able to fill it out and finally got it submitted. So now we have to wait for lender approval, and that's based on what they initially said. That should take a day or two, and then funding it should take another day or two. So by the end of this week, if all goes well and we're approved, we should be funded, hopefully.
Yeah, and I mean it's here's the thing, right? Obviously, we're not experiencing the lack of work that a lot of people are, but we are experiencing a slowdown in payment, and we expect that to kind of continue because owners are going to be hitting the brakes on some of their buildings, which is going to filter down to us. And some fabricators are going to, the detailer is always the first person. So this again is another reason for the smart detailers out there, the ones who have listened to some of our advice about having strong contracts, getting your lien paperwork in there early and often, making sure that you're known as a subcontractor, all of that stuff. This is the time that that's going to pay dividends, right? Because they're looking at 5 checks they have to write, and the person that they know is going to scream the loudest is going to get that first check. And so you want to be that person, right? Like you want to make sure that it's known that you're not going to go away quietly. And if you weren't prepared in the past, now is kind of that kick in the butt that you might need to be prepared in the future.
Yep.
So, and don't be afraid. Just because you haven't had to lay people off does not mean that you're not qualified or that you don't need this money, because you could do all of that work and not get paid. So be prepared, get that out there. Because the rub is, right, just like one of those settlements where they're like, you could receive a payment up to $1,000. Yeah, but if everybody applies, then nobody's getting that money. And that's what some spectators are expecting from these SBA loans. There's a set amount of funds available there, and it's for employers with up to 500 employees. So if you can imagine how quickly that money is going to run out, it's very, very quickly. And so you want to be in there as quickly as possible with your application, which is why you had yours submitted this morning before 10 o'clock, right? Like
Yep.
it's got to go. There is a fixed amount of money there, and we do expect it to go to those, I don't want to say higher tier, but the larger companies with more logistical resources behind them.
Right. It's going to be a first come, first served. So the quicker you get to the top of that pile, the better.
Yep.
So, I mean, what are you doing watching our video? Go apply right now.
Yeah. Go do it. Go do it. If you haven't done it yet, go get that money. It's yours. And for once, the detailing community was included in a government program, so that's good. Another thing I wanted to mention is the NASCC, for those who don't know, has officially been canceled. They're switching to a online thing. We did shoot a video talking about that, but then they kind of preempted us, and they did cancel it. So one of the cool things about this now is if you go to aisc.org/learn, they've got all of their programs free of charge. So even if you're not an AISC member, you can go in there and watch some of the stuff. They've got some really interesting presentations from over the years. A lot of you are stuck at home now. You got all sorts of time, and you've got that extra nice setup at home, I'm sure. Go ahead and build up your experience a little bit. Learn some stuff. Go through those webinars. And the nice thing is, in this format, if the presentation sucks, like a lot of these in-person conferences tend to, you can just skip on to the next one. So go out there, get that information, improve yourself. And actually, the AISC has been pretty, I want to say progressive, as far as they canceled, not quite as early as I would like, but they did cancel early, and they were like, all right, let's get this taken care of. They have done that. And they seem to be moving forward on the concept of a digital conference. I'm sure they're scrambling trying to get the logistics of that set up, but they've got one scheduled for April 20th. We'll see how that all plays out. But they've got some pretty extensive resources, so they should be able to put something together. We'll see if that, domestic versus, or how to subcontract your detailing offshore, we'll see if that one comes to fruition or not. Hopefully not. Now, what else? What else should we be prepared for? What are we looking? What's the prognosis, you think, for the detailers? Is it going to be? Are we going to come out the other side of this? Are we going to lose a lot of detailers as far as the businesses go?
I've been pondering that, and it's a lot of back and forth in my head. I feel like the overseas side of things, which I don't know what they're doing, other than a lot of them are shut down. But I have no idea how well funded they're going to be, if they're going to receive any kind of a stimulus on their end, as far as from their government. So
Well, I mean, let's be real, right?
are
Like
they going to go
those
away? 'Cause
businesses,
a big company can fold if you
right,
just go without work for a long period of time.
right. But those businesses aren't funded by Indian companies largely, right? They're funded by American companies. But the American companies that fund them aren't going to be able to go and say, "Hey, I want payroll stimulus," because those aren't American workers, right? You
Right?
can't,
They're not American citizens.
right? So they're going to be left out on this, which to me is fine. I don't. It's our tax dollars, right? Like they should be going to India or Philippines or Belarus, or we kind of pick on India, which is really not fair. There's quite a few of these offshore outfits in a lot of different countries. So,
But as far as that, I don't know what competition is going to look like out the other end of this. Are we going to see a niche that needs to be filled? And I kind of the problem that we had in 2008 was the meltdown knocked out a lot of U.S. detailers, and it left a void that overseas detailers swarmed into.
yeah.
So now, if
I'm kind of hoping this goes the other way, though.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is it might leave that void again, and possibly the U.S. detailers swarm back in.
Yeah, I'd like to say that fabricators will have kind of learned their lesson about how important the fact that we are domestic can be in these situations, but I don't expect it, honestly, because the thing that we've consistently seen when we've been talking to fabricators who do offshore is that the people that make the decision to offshore work are not the ones who actually have to handle the offshore work, right? It's usually they're just looking at the dollars and cents and not the complete logistics of it. So I'm not overly optimistic on that front.
Yeah, I'm not. That's why I say it's tough to even predict, because there's so many variables at play here.
Right. Well, and
But
honestly,
really,
in
all
the
we can
States,
do is just hunker down and
we
try to
have
worry
no
about our own
idea
survival.
where we are in this process because we're not testing people. Like, we have not started an honest process of testing for a coronavirus. We're not even testing the people that we believe to have it. We're basically treating them as if they have it and then moving on. So the numbers that we've seen are confirmed cases. That's what we keep seeing. But the numbers for actual cases are going to be much, 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 much higher. And especially with the evidence now that you can pass it on while being asymptomatic is an indication that this is spread much more widely than we understand. So we'll see how that goes. I'm kind of hoping that, or I guess expecting that someplace in around mid-June, things are going to get back to what we would call a sense of normal. Construction people tend to view their work as essential. So they're kind of all pretending that they're essential work regardless. It's the employees that are kind of driving the ship, from what I've heard, is basically where the employees are basically saying, I'm not coming to work, right? I'm not going to do it. That's when job sites are shutting down. It's not generally the contractors that are saying, okay, you don't have to come anymore. It's the ones that are saying, listen, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put my family at risk. Right. So that's it. So I guess
I think we talked with some fabricator that basically gave their employees the option. They said, you guys can take off and claim unemployment, or you can show up and earn your full check. And they said, I'm out.
Yeah, and that's
take the unemployment.
That's what a lot of employers are afraid of when these stimulus packages get passed. Things like this is the employers. They believe that the overwhelming majority of people will do that. When the option is I can sit at home and do nothing, I'm going to sit at home and do nothing.
And stay safe.
That's why this is different than other cases, right? Like It's not just unemployment; it's unemployment in not only you stay safe, but keep the people around you safe too.
Right.
You know, the estimates right now is that every carrier of the disease infects 3 other people. I don't want to be one of those 3 people, but more importantly, I don't want to be the one person who's infecting 3 others. You know, that's my goal. I went to the grocery store last night on my weekly run. I go at the absolute end of the night. There's like 10 people in the whole store, but still, I wore my mask, and it's as much to protect the people around me as it is to protect myself and my family. So
Now, let me ask you about that strategy, because you're an end of the night person and I'm an opening person. How does that look as far as the shelves? Are they all picked over and you're just kind of going through the scraps?
there are very few things that are still out of stock, and it's weird things like bread flour is still not in stores. I managed to get some, but it was from a different location. Brown sugar we couldn't get, but other than that, everything, all the essentials, all the stuff that we actually need is fully stocked. It's not really an issue, and it's not really something that we expected to be an issue long term. The hoarders, we call them, initially created a problem, but I think the run on brown sugar is that everybody's home now and they want to bake cookies.
Yeah.
The amount of
It's probably the deal with bread flour too, but that was funny is I saw that just the bread flour, all-purpose flour, plenty, but the bread flour was wiped out. So I'm looking at that and like, you guys don't know how to bake bread.
yeah.
There's just not that many people. I mean, there's people that know how to bake bread, but not most of you. Come on.
Yeah, but there are a lot of bread makers coming out of their, closets where they've sat in the box since they've been purchased.
Yep.
And I mean, if you're going to be home, making bread is fantastic. The homemade bread is an entirely different category of product versus the stuff you buy in the store. We love it
too.
Yeah. Oh, the pizza dough. And really, I think you make it by hand, right?
Yep.
Yeah. For
I
the
make
most
bread
part,
and pizza dough by hand.
I throw mine in the bread maker and just let it do its thing, and it's not 100%, but it's 90% and zero work. So good by me.
Since this has all started, talking about making the bread, last year I had started my own little just personal YouTube channel doing just some simple little things, weightlifting and kayaking and stuff like that kind of interests me. And at the end of some of the videos, I would just record a recipe of something that I was making for lunch or whatever that day. And I actually got some interest in that. So I've been thinking, with nothing to do but sit here and cook at night, maybe I should just start firing up the camera and recording some more of those sorts of things. And, what's your quarantine munchie of the day?
Well, and that's the cool thing about quarantine. Like, this is something for me normally, but everybody out there, man, get that smoker out and get that slow cooking done. Oh, get yourself a brisket, get some pulled pork, throw that on the smoker, let that cook for the whole day, and you could be loving it. And that's actually the weird thing about this whole quarantine is that from our personal perspective, this is fantastic. And, like, it sucks to say that. Like, I feel really, really guilty. But my family is here. My wife's a teacher, so she's, still working from home. She's, handing out those letters. She's still getting paid, right? My kids are home. We've got, it's been kind of nice. And I know that in the bigger world, it's a dark place and things are going down. But it's been okay on this side. So, I've been looking for ways to try to help the community at large. Encourage everybody, obviously, to go do that. But it is what it is. I can't intentionally make myself suffer. So, all right, I think that's it for us today here on the Steel Forum. We have been very busy. We expect to be very busy, so we might be sparse here. As always, that our taking care of our customers is our number one priority. We would like to check in with you guys. Go get that money. Go get that stimulus check. Not the one that everybody gets, but the small business owners. I know a lot of you are small business owners out there. Don't feel afraid of it. Go get those resources. If you need help, As always, reach out to us down in those comments, hit the subscribe buttons, and we will see you back here next time on the Steel Forum.